Your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way Galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello everybody and welcome. Man, that was fun. Kind of waited a couple extra seconds to begin the intro and that was speedy. As speedy as it was when Henry Waxman, former Democrat of California, brought in a speed reader because some people on Capitol Hill wanted to read the bill before they passed Obamacare. And see, I was at a fundraising event with Henry Waxman, and he said, quote, "Net neutrality will be the culmination of our 100-year plan." Yeah, it was as creepy then as it is now. And now we have ObamaNet. Aren't you all thrilled? Hope you're all ready. AR-15 ammunition is being attacked. Yeah, if we can ban all the ammo, you don't need to ban the guns. I mean, is this really a country that you even recognize? I used to study and read horror stories about what happened in Germany and Russia and China, all these other places. Now it's here. And there's something else that's here. There are some black sites, secret locations. A particular location in Chicago, where, according to The Guardian, Gestapo tactics at a U.S. police black site ring an alarm from Chicago to Washington. Shocked politicians and rights groups call for inquiries into Homan Square. Rahm Emanuel faces questions as top supporters examine outrageous abuse. Rahm Emanuel used to be Obama's right-hand person. See, you got to put this into perspective. And you know what? Let me do this. The perspective that you need to put this into is on our Facebook page. Follow us here. Obama passes the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, the Indefinite Detention Bill. Then, his right-hand man, Rahm Emanuel, goes to Chicago as mayor. Now, Americans are being dragged into this formerly secret location for torture and abuse. You think there are any limits to what people won't do when they're completely corrupted by power and money? You got another thing coming. Hey, but luckily we got the internet. No, we just lost that. Okay. Yeah. Oh, it's not a big deal. You didn't lose the internet. In fact, you have net neutrality now. Yeah. See, Comcast, because Comcast, bad. Uh-huh. Okay. I guess Comcast is bad, so I guess this makes sense. I think we need a department of the internet now. No, this is really, really bad. I hate to say it's all downhill from here, but I don't know how else to say it. I really don't. So what I can say is this. I want you to check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. Oh, by the way, Bobby Rodrigo from the Solutions Institute joining us in just a moment here. I want you to go on our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. 3 things. On the right-hand side, it says TNAM Radio, because the news always matters. TNAM Radio right there. You click it. That's where you listen to this program live every week. Then, underneath that, you have 2 things. Twitter feed and our Facebook feed. Like them, follow them, do that, okay? Or if you do it manually, on Twitter, we're at American_media_. That's American_media_. Then, on Facebook, you do a search for The New American Media with spaces in between, and then you like the page. Then, finally, make sure that you subscribe. YouTube.com/The New American Media. That's where a lot of conversation continues, is through our YouTube platform. So visit there. Hey, and guess what? Watch those ads. If they play in the background, put up with a couple seconds, because it's like a donation to us, which is cool. Because then you can help people. Come on, man. You got some change, man? Man. Come on, man. You got a little change you can put in my hand? That's how you do it. found this other site, Sue, TSU. 90% of all their ad revenue goes to artists and original content creators. I was like, You have to be invited in, TSU? Anyway, looking into that, not endorsing that. However, what I am endorsing is that you join us for this program and you talk with Mr. Bobby Rodrigo. So let's get him on the horn right about now. Did you just say meow? Come on, meow. Super Troopers Part 2 is on the way, by the way. Did you hear?
Bobby Rodrigo.
Brian Engelman, you are live on the air, sir. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Excellent. How are you today?
Amazing. Living the dream, of course. But I was just talking about Super Troopers, that a sequel is coming out. And I was, just for no apparent reason, and in the weirdest way to start an interview ever, are you a Super Troopers fan, Bobby Rodrigo?
Of course. Who could not be a Super Troopers fan when Denise Richards is in it? And I happen to be a heterosexual, so it does a lot for me in that regard. I got no love for the bugs, though.
Hold on. Super Troopers, we're thinking of...
I'm mixing them up? Am I mixing them up?
Yes, we are. But that's another good one, too. Hang on, I'm going to go to IMDb. What's the name of the one you just brought up? Who am I looking for? Denise?
Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers, yes. I liked Starship Troopers a lot. I remembered liking it way more than I probably should have. No, Super Troopers, about the highway patrol people. And you got to grow a damn mustache already.
Now I'm on board, yes.
Hey, anything Troopers, Stormtroopers,
Anything Troopers, Stormtroopers, Super Troopers. I'm absolutely there. I agree.
Hey, we've seen in the past year and a half, we've seen Stormtroopers at the Bundy Ranch. We've seen them in Ferguson. We've seen them in Boston, right? In Chicago for NATO.
First.
What's that?
We saw them in Boston first.
Yeah.
As far as here was concerned, yeah.
Yeah, that was what the soft rollout, the test, the guinea pig, if you will. All right, here we're gonna beta test this in Boston. That'd be wicked smart. They'd never suspect nothing.
It was quite interesting that the home of the Sons of Liberty would allow such an egregious violation of those constitutional protections that we have in this country. It was quite, and it was so quiet when it happened. The Liberty movement even had to take a reboot and just shake their heads and go, wait a minute, did I just see what I saw? Did that really happen? I mean, it took a minute when everybody should have been jumping up and down. All of the journalists that was covering it should just have been like, are you kidding me? That should have been the first thing out of their mouth. But what are you doing? You can't do that. Who gave you that authority? And, of course, that never happened. It still hasn't happened. The only questioning coming from it is from the people who actually have read the Constitution, apparently, and love liberty and prefer not to have a militarized police department or our actual military running the streets of our country. Quite the subject, to say the least.
Yeah, Posse Comitatus. I've talked with Stuart Rhodes on the program before, and I think Oathkeepers is an amazing organization. At least in theory, I don't follow them all that closely, but at least what I was handed, the little card, the business card with what they are and what they are not at Occupy LA, it makes a lot of sense, and it's really comes down to the fact that regardless of what orders may be given at some point, if the people who are responding to those politicians or the very top, if there's no enactment of what's been told, then the act never occurs. If you just think about Germany and you think about what happened in World War II and how the people just went along with it and how it just started getting worse and worse. And unfortunately, I'm seeing some parallels between Nazi Germany and World War II to today and what's looming on the horizon as a possible World War III. But that's why I wanted to bring you in today, because you and I work together in a group called Solutions Institute. We both volunteered to assist Dan Johnson in kind of launching this and making a platform where we could have almost like TEDx, almost like a TEDx conference for activists. It's called ActCon, something I proposed early on and was laughed at, and I kept calling it ActCon, and then other people called it ActCon, and it pretty much stuck because it just, I don't know, it just seemed goofy enough, but it's an online activist training convention. And you and I worked on that, and, as we got to talk, because you and I were two of the people primarily responsible for just kind of, if you could say, overseeing all of the details of the entire event, and there's a lot of facets to it. I started learning more about you and found out, your background and with event planning, and finding out that you do a radio show. And by the way, I grabbed a cup of coffee in your honor. I was just drinking water, but now I'm on coffee. So I think this is a good time for me to just shut up, step aside, and maybe ask you to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're coming from, what you've done with Coffee Party, what you did with Solutions Institute. I'll just give you the floor for a little while, because people don't know you over here, and, how else than in your own words?
It's a shame they don't know me anymore over there. I was over there a long time back in the day. I have a little bit of age to me. I lived in California for 10 years and did work in media there somewhat as well. My name is Bobby Rodrigo, for those who are meeting me for the first time. I have a radio show called I Take Liberty with My Coffee, so I'm hoping that Brian's got some liberty in his coffee. I'm sure he does. I'm a member of Coffee Party USA. I've been an activist a long time. Actually, the way I put it is St. Reagan made me an activist. I got born in New York City. I am a member of the national team for People Against the NDAA. I work with a number of other organizations as well. Coffee Party is one of the main ones, mainly because the platform promotes a civil dialogue with fact-based information, and they want to get money and corruption out of politics. All things that pretty much goes across the board for anybody who's paying attention, in my view. Most of the time, you can find a common ground with any ideology about the corruption in our government based upon money, at least to a degree, if not a lot. So I've been working hard at that. I am an Oathkeeper as well. You mentioned that. The organization is a wonderful concept. I totally believe in the platform again. There are times when I'm frustrated, but we are responsible to police ourselves. When I find people who are not behaving with the way the platform says it, you're supposed to call them out, and it happens, like it does in a lot of organizations. But I am proud to be a card-carrying Oathkeeper. I am a veteran of the United States Navy. I was an operations specialist, which means I'm an expert on war, literally. That was my job. I had to know what our capabilities were, what the weapons were, how to protect us, how to find them, how to track them. Kind of an interesting job for an 18-year-old to have coming out of boot camp, to say the least. And I would rather be on the lake, which, of course, people in California don't understand, but I'm not. I'm in Atlanta now, and I'm not at the beach, so I have lakes. I'd rather be at the lake, but our society does not allow me to take that relaxation time too much because they're keeping me busy, trying to at least shine a light on the bad things that are happening in the world, and it's happening all the time. And I'm glad to know, Brian, we worked, as he mentioned, together on the first ACTON conference for Solutions Institute. It went very well. We had great guests on top of everything else. John Wells, who I know has been a guest of yours a number of times, was on. Derek Brose. We had the Coffee Party president, Evelyn Molyneux. Dan Johnson spoke. We had Derek Brose from the Houston Freethinkers, Issa Hodge, Ford Fisher, who works with News to Share. It was a great event, and the platform was we are trying to help activist organizations get their message across, help them organize, help them achieve what they're trying to do, and nothing else, without force of any kind and without forcing our ideology, whatever that might be for an individual or collectively, on anybody else. It's just trying to give them the tools to achieve a message.
Has it been determined, Bobby, if that conference is going to be made available, or if you purchase tickets to ACTCON 2, you'll get access to ACTCON 1? Has that final decision been made? I know that it's been back
I believe
and forth.
that's how it's working, yes. I believe if you purchase tickets for ACTCON 2, which right now is tentatively scheduled for May 16th, you also gain access to the 7 hours or 6 hours of video presentations by 12 guests from ACTCON 1. That is how it is set up, I believe, right now.
And Bobby was the man behind the scenes who was basically overseeing it all. making it successful, essentially. And it was interesting. It was cool, and it was nice because Bobby was the one. I did give the first lecture to kick things off, bright and squirrely. Which I don't know. The people that know me very well, you'll much more likely either see me in my Adidas or Cleveland Cavaliers life jersey than you will in a suit or tie. But
there's that Cleveland reference early in the call.
You know it. Winners of 18 of the last 20, and LeBron went off and smashed the Golden State Warriors last night.
Sports Reporters 2 tonight.
Woo!
I got the whole slam.
Yeah, dude. No, but anyway, yeah, I got dressed up, gave the thing, but it was nice because as people were asking questions on solutions-institute.org during the live event, Bobby was the one taking those questions and relaying them through to me through Skype to go back out to the feed. It was really interesting. It was nice. It's just a reminder of how much you can actually accomplish without having to fly across the world to do it. When you reduce the expense of doing this, so you go to a convention, it'll be $50, $150 to get access to it. Then you got to buy tickets for all the individual speakers. I was just at the Conscious Life Expo. I'll have some more interviews coming out. Talked with Adam Kokesh twice, once in a panel discussion, then once in a one-on-one interview. Very good talk. Talked with Jim Mars, author of Crossfire, that was the basis of the Kennedy, the JFK movie with Oliver Stone. Really interesting, but yeah, to attend a conference like that, you got to take several days, and as sure as hell better be in your backyard, which this one was in Los Angeles. But I mean, if you got to go to Houston or if you got to go to New York, and you're sitting there in Montana, it's tricky. But you know what? For what was it, 10 or 15? I think it was $15. You got access to this convention, and the cool thing is that you're communicating directly with Bobby, who's then asking that question to the speaker. So that type of interaction during the live event is pretty cool, and I really do hope people will be able to see more of ActCon 1 if they weren't listening to it live or bought the ticket to the first one, because there is good information there. And speaking of information, Bobby, let's shift gears for a second now that we've had a little getting to know you session.
We've had a little coffee.
Yeah, had a few sips of coffee. Hold on, I'm gonna do that. The best part of waking up. There we go. Sorry, I don't know if that's copyright. Now I'm going to be flagged on YouTube.
I don't care. That's great. We have warp minds and we can sit and do commercial jingles. To say the least.
Careful, I'm going to start singing, my buddy, wherever I go, he goes. Yeah, seriously.
That's okay. I actually know both versions of the Parts Assembly theme song, so that'll tell you how many drugs I've done in my life.
Well,
moving on.
And okay, so something that is important, this story that is at the top of your list, and it's something now that I've ceded control over the internet to Obama. We now have ObamaNet, and it's the end of. This is the beginning of the end. I think it's also the end of the beginning. I think you're going to see things rapidly start to change coming up in the next few months. By June, I think you're going to see rapid changes, and let's hope that I'm wrong. Now, something that's on the top of your radar now that I'm focusing away from ObamaNet, because we still don't even know what's in it.
We do love our hashtags in this world, don't we?
Yeah, ObamaNet. Yeah, hey, if you like your internet, you can keep your internet. I've talked about this for a long time, and this is bad all around, and this administration...
I have a question for you on that.
Yeah.
We talked briefly about this, and
one
of my issues with the net neutrality thing is that I believe that we've had a false argument, meaning that both sides of the debate are not actually debating on what's really going on. But I spent some time since we talked, because mind you, I do not like the government taking over the internet. I don't want anybody to think that's listening that I'm somehow capitulating to that, because I don't like that. But what I did do is I went and I pulled the 5-page dissertation that the FCC has released about what they are in fact doing, or what they're saying they are doing. And I was wondering if you had a chance to read that.
Some of that. Do you have it in front of you?
I do.
Yeah, let's go through it, because what we should do is we should archive this show and we'll come back to it, because remember all the things I was screaming about with the death panels, with the prices going up, losing your doctor, losing your health insurance plan, the fact that there are going to be secret waiting lists, the VA proved that was true. All the things I was screaming in the debate phases of Obamacare. Oh, you're crazy. You're making things up. You're a nut job. Oh, where's your tinfoil hat? Do they cover you for that? Get a load of this guy. He's too awake. All those things have, in fact, been vindicated over time.
Well,
this is like a time capsule. We'll put a stamp on it, and we'll come back in a couple years and say, was Brian right? Yes or no? And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
That you mentioned that, and just briefly on that, I always thought that was another example, another example of a false argument, because when you had an ideologue, whatever side of it was, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there's actually 4 or 5 sides to that argument. But when you had somebody come in and talk about it from the standpoint of providing health care to people, what really happened is the government mandated that we bought insurance from a corporation. So we actually became an actual working oligarchy or plutocracy, or
a fascist state. It's
thank you,
fascist.
whatever.
Because fascism is the blending of corporation and government, and this was literally the most fascist thing that anybody could have possibly done with healthcare, 1/6 of our economy. The most fascist move possible. Yes.
Of course, the part of the argument is that it didn't go far enough, and my big thing about this is that when I hear the right-left drama about it, it's kind of comical from a historical standpoint. The Heritage Foundation fully promoted the affordable health care, pretty much the same model that's out there. At one time, Robert Dole, when he ran for president and when he was in the Senate, fully supported it. Of course, Ted Kennedy was a proponent of it for a long time on the left side. This goes all the way back to the Roosevelts, in their push forward. So when I hear, the right-left diatribe and the duopoly screaming out, I kind of chuckle, because they've all have their fingerprint on it. And, of course, one of the reasons why Romney didn't make this such a paramount issue, because I really thought that he was quiet about it, considering, is, of course, that he implemented the same exact thing with the same author in Massachusetts. So it just goes to show how there really is, when it comes to duopoly, when it comes to certain things, they really are the same. And they just form an argument, that false argument again, that doesn't really get down to the. I mean, it was never discussed. We're going to give the health insurance all this money and increase their profits. That part of the argument never came out of the right or the left.
It did, but it didn't last. It had no legs. It wasn't picked up.
People who did it, of course, but it wasn't the mainstream media argument. That's not what it was. They would rather talked about things that appeared to be things that were predicted, because it was a phased introduction, of course. Instead of going right after what was known at the time, there was no prediction. You were buying health. You were being ordered to buy health care from these insurance carriers, period. And if you're going to oppose it, that should have been number one. Why do I have to give money to corporations? Well, we all know that in our world today, corporations are people, according to the robes, the black robes. And, of course, that's ridiculous, but that's part of the problem, what's going on, right, left, or indifferent, whatever it is. It's infiltrating the entire argument, and mainstream media just plays along, does what it's told, and creates this brainwashing thing, which leads me back down to, that's why it's great what you're saying about creating a time capsule, because here I'm looking at what it says. So this is what we need to see if it happens one way or the other, bad, right, or good, because this is what they're saying they're getting ready to do. I think it's a scary opening up, considering some of the other things that are happening in our society as well. But this isn't some of the things that they're talking about in here. I have no problem with, if in fact this is what they do.
Oh, I like, and I'm okay with. Okay, a couple points. One, we were going to get Romneycare or Obamacare because that's what the oligarchs had selected in advance. Republicans and Democrats, the only thing worse than a Republican is a Democrat, and they're both almost equally worthless to me. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. They've let me down on 100 occasions. I have never aligned politically with a Democrat, and I'll say that maybe 9 out of 10 times. Of course, there are some social issues, because I'm pretty just hands off. Like, your personal life, if you're not harming another person, do your thing. Just, to each their own, just don't harm people. But Republicans are almost worse because they've lied to me so many times and tricked me into voting for Bush and even McCain, God bless me. I couldn't do it for Romney. I was on the path and I knew where this was headed for a while. And I finally threw my hands up and said, you know what? I'm Matt Damon in, what's the movie with Good Will Hunting. I'm Matt Damon talking to Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting. That's me picking the wrench. Why? Because F him. You could get beaten by your dad with a switch or with a belt.
That you voted for John McCain. That was I had to hold my nose real strong to do that one. And I'm telling you, because the 4 years previously, I was just so upset with what Obama was doing. No, you mean Bush?
Yeah, how it was switching, and as I learned what Obama was up to and how he had grown up and who his philosophies came from, I said, "Oh my God, this is." If anything could be worse than Bush, it's this. I can't believe it. I held my nose and voted for McCain, knowing that he's a neocon just as bad as the both of them.
There was no choice. I mean, just to talk about that briefly. There was no choice. If you think about it, if you go back and you look at the things that Obama said he was going to stop, you support them. I know you're a liberty guy, so you support. I mean, the Patriot Act is a horrid thing, for example. The warmongering is a horrid thing. Iraq was ridiculous. The lie of Iraq and the budget and all of the things, these things. Now, don't get you wrong. I've never voted for Obama, but I would have voted for him the second time if he would have been the man he said he was going to be the first time.
You know what? That is a great way to say that. Can you say that one more time? Just let that sink into my skull.
I would have voted for Obama the second time if he would have been the man that he said he was the first time.
God, that's a great phrase.
I think that's very important.
That needs to be on a T-shirt or a bumper sticker or something, because that really encapsulates the bullshit that we were fed. And the hopeity hope and the changeity change and the I'm saying everything by saying nothing, for the love of God, we were that stupid to put up with it. And I don't, because of the 8 years of the Bush administration, that's the only way someone so incompetent and radical could have ever been elected, regardless of whether he's a historical figure, a historical figure racially. The only way he could have been elected was on the heels of how bad Bush was.
Bush served up a lot of reasons for someone to take a stand from the opposite party. He opened up a lot of doors. Dick Cheney is one of I mean, if you look at the Bush administration, I'll tell you a couple things that are interesting, but if you look at the Bush administration, especially the veterans, there's nothing but criminals. I mean, Cheney and Gates, and I'm not talking about what Cheney did when he was with Bush. If you go back and look at Cheney and Gates and Rumsfeld and all these guys, if you look at their history and you follow their careers, as I mentioned, I'm a little older. These guys have been doing bad things for a long time, and then when... And
that's the best reason to stop having an oligarchy. Now what? They want another Clinton or another Bush in the office. You've got to be kidding me.
And you realize, that's just, I just don't want it to happen.
I know. But hey, let's pick the wrench. If we're going down, let's go down so we can reboot and get our world back where it's supposed to be. Like
we have a presidential election.
Yeah, wouldn't that be novel?
I was watching Bush this afternoon at CPAC, of course, and if we have a Bush-Clinton election, we are in a lot of trouble.
Call it a puppet show. You don't even call it an election. Just call it a puppet show.
It really is. And when you're talking about trying to fix, God, they're feeding us so much crap. It is ridiculous. Jeremy Scahill, I saw him at a Liberty event last year, and he was talking about Obama, and he was talking about the war party, which is really both parties.
The progressive party, the neocon, the progressive, the big government. However you define it, it's Republicans and Democrats.
What he's talking about is Congress. I mean, his view about our foreign policy is pretty much my view. We don't have two parties. We have a war party. We have, if you look at our war histories, for example, in my lifetime, we have been in war for every single day of it except for maybe 4 months, I think it is. I'm 52 years old. That's absurd. And yet we've never declared war. We haven't declared war since World War II.
That's like being a Cleveland sports fan. We haven't won a championship since 1964, and I've been alive since 79. I've never seen one.
I was going to go there, but I am a guest. I can do it.
Do it. Go there. We can agree to disagree. That's the name of the show. You can bring up some Giants garbage if you want to talk about the better Manning brother.
A lot of garbage if you're going to bring up the Giants than there is for the Browns. But that's another. So if we're going to talk about New York and Cleveland, all I have to do is pull out the Yankees, and it'll take you a long time just to catch up if you use the states.
Steinbrenner, interesting fact, Steinbrenner wanted to purchase the Indians, and he was shut out of the deal, so he went and did the Yankees deal and changed their franchise.
Yeah, and that is nice, and of course, in Steinbrenner's ownership, he did win 6 championships. Of course, we have 27. So if you take Steinbrenner out of the picture and give him to Cleveland, we'd still be with 21. Just saying. So anyway, and remember, Vince Lombardi came from us, and they named the trophy after him. But that's another story. So
that's almost as impressive as having the Pro Football Hall of Fame right there, because you really helped invent the game with Paul Brown.
No, we want Ohio to stay involved. We have to keep them engaged. That's why the Mara family came up with, let's give the money to everybody else, too, so we can actually have a league, because I don't want it all. It's kind of nice of them to do that.
Oh, those socialists. Okay, anyway, we digress.
It's socialism in the billions. I love it. So, we have a war party, and one of the things, the last president to stand up to the Department of Defense, literally, was Kennedy. He's the last president that we had that had a spine. Now, I'm not sitting here saying I'm some overly blind supporter of Kennedy. Actually, the last president I like is Eisenhower, and I didn't even get to have him, so I probably am wrong about it because I didn't live underneath him. But Kennedy was the last guy to have a spine with the military, that's for sure. And
how'd that work out? How'd that work out for him?
Well, exactly. I mean, if you think about it, that all kind of fits that whole narrative. But if you think about what has happened, it's true. And the reason that Scahill brought that up in this conference that I was at with him was he wanted to point out that if you were following along what Obama was saying prior to being elected, when the primaries were done and McCain and Obama were the choices, what happens in every election cycle is that there is an NSA briefing for each of the candidates, so they're up to speed on what's going on going forward, because of course one of them is going to be president. And
my question about that, when they do that, is that why Romney stopped going after
Bingo.
Regarding Benghazi, because Benghazi was the linchpin to Syria, to Libya, to Iran, to Russia, to China. It's really the linchpin to all of it. And is that why Romney shut up? Because he had that election won by exposing what happened at Benghazi, and he just stopped. He let him have it.
Well, it certainly plays a part in it, because if you notice, it certainly plays a part in it, because Obama changed when he had his NSA briefing, and the story that Scahill was reminding us of, which is true if you're a historian, is when Kennedy went to his NSA briefing, he walked out of the room. He wouldn't put up with what he was hearing. He said that he basically said you guys are out of your mind, and walked out of the room. Nobody else has done that since then, like you say. Look where it got him. But if you follow Obama, and he's right about this, when you follow Obama, he changed after that and became a different person. And remember, a great example of some of the things that he talked about that he was going to do was stop the drone program, which is a good thing. And he has given it steroids. The drone program now is 10 times, 100 times worse than what it was under Bush. It's not even comparable. You can't even compare them. Now it's just, it started under Clinton, but it started under Bush. You can't even compare what happened under Bush to what how many drones Obama has used, or how many we have just in our war machine, for example. It completely changed the dialogue. And then, of course, the Patriot Act, which is egregious. Now, when he becomes president, what happens is he signs the indefinite detention provision of the NDAA.
And for the people that aren't aware, give us the elevator pitch on the indefinite detention of the NDAA, because you're so involved with Dan on that.
the United States of America, the military can indefinitely detain anyone, anywhere, including Americans, on American soil, and not give them a lawyer, a bail, a judge, a charge, and hold them indefinitely in any facility that they have jurisdiction of in the world, which means you and I can be arrested right now and taken to Gitmo or Indonesia or Diego Garcia. I don't know if we have one in Indonesia, but we definitely have one in Diego Garcia. Or wherever else they have a brig or.
I wonder if that's FEMA Region 370 over there. Sorry, too soon? It's been a year. We still don't know where that darn flight is. I still can't believe it.
And listen, the CIA is good at what they do, and I want them to know that I feel that way before they come and get me. So at least I got a chance.
No, but you're a useful man. You used to be a Navy operations specialist. You got this. You can be flipped pretty quick.
I can actually tell them how fast an aircraft carrier can go and actually know the truth and not what's in the books.
So there's the official version and then the official version.
When I was in OSA school, which is Operations Specialist A school, quote unquote A school, when we would be on the base in the evenings, they have an enlisted man's club, and one of the things that used to happen is the NIS would send people into the enlisted man's club and ask you questions about what you were learning. Because if you talked about, for example, the speed of a ship, you were giving classified information away. And when you went to OSA school right out of boot camp, you were automatically classified. You were working in secret material, not top secret. You'll get there when you go to C school, but you were already working in a secret area. So they would send people at you to find out if you were going to talk freely about stuff that you were learning in class. And one of the things that they would talk about is how fast does a ship go, because that's the speed of our ships is a classified issue when they teach you it in school, for example. It's interesting. So all of these things would happen. I was on a military base called Fleet Combat Training Center Atlantic for my A school, and the building in my C school building, where we would be in a building and we would have a radar tower and all the other aspects of what we do, IFF, which is identify friend and foe, and things like that, on our building. Now, we're on the beach. We're literally on the beach. My base is on the beach. And then along the beach are 5-inch guns that sit on destroyers and on battleships. And one of the other schools that was on my base was Gunner's Mate School, and it was also Missile Defense School there, and there was some other nuclear-powered schools on there. And so we would actually run live drills with the Gunner's Mate on the beach, and we would be tracking and shooting targets out on the beach in Virginia. It was quite interesting, to say the least. And, luckily there wasn't any civilian boats going by. At least I don't.
Well, but I think you're summarizing exactly why they're trying to now ban AR-15 ammunition now. If we can't ban the guns, let's ban the ammo. And there's a reason why they're out there telling people that what's more dangerous is a homegrown domestic terrorist threat of, those idiots that have read the Constitution, talk about the Federal Reserve, mention the Bill of Rights, maybe search Ron Paul, maybe have been in former military and have training.
I have to tell you something about that, because I know what you're referring to. The recent discussion, CNN broke a story.
Well, CNN and Obama high-ranking officials kind of put it out there that ISIS is not as big a threat.
But it wasn't. I read the report. I actually have the report in front of me. That never happened. CNN lied to us about it. And what happened?
Amber Lyon told us that a while ago.
Well, yeah, if you think. It's one of my favorite people in the world, Amber Lyon.
I need to have her back on the program, because you and I think we met in passing. We might have even said hello and perhaps shaken hands in a quick intro
yes.
At the United We Stand festival. And by the way, do you remember where the heck we're talking, where this conversation is going? Because I'm about to go on a tangent. I don't want you to lose your fair mind.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about the net neutrality. That's still sitting in front of me in case I lose my place.
Oh, CNN lying to us, and then net neutrality, and then we got to talk about the Chicago black sites,
right?
The special ops site. But, okay, so we'll pick it up there in a second. But real quick, I just found out, actually a week or two ago, that Abby Martin is leaving Russia Today, and I need to have
Yeah.
her back on my program. I interviewed her at that event as well, along with Amber Lyon and Ben Swan and Dan Johnson, all these cats. Do we know where she's headed? What she's going to be doing?
She's going to Media Roots so far.
Okay.
That's all that's being said. Dan Johnson, who we both work with, he was just on her show about a week and a half. Well,
prior
2 weeks
to
ago.
ActCon, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. The week prior. I think it was January 27th. Actually, now that you mention it,
About a month.
it was about that. Yeah. So we did interact a little bit, and I talked to Leo, who works with her on her websites and stuff, and apparently she's going to go on Media Roots and she's going to weigh options. Now, there's been some talk about some offers that she may get. I don't have any clue if she's gotten them or if it's even valid, but who knows? You know, some people were talking about Intercept is going to or should go after her and possibly could be a good fit. I don't know. After what happened with Matt Taibbi, I'm not sure if Intercept is actually a good fit for anybody in the future per se, because apparently they've been a little bit corrupted by their money funder guy. Of course, there's big money behind that as well, and they're trying to keep their integrity, which I hope they do. I love their staff.
Well, she's a good up-and-coming voice, like all these cats, the Ben Swans, the Abby Martins. It's a shame you got to go to Russia Today to get the truth. Like, I swear I'm living in a cuckoo clock.
Absolutely. I mean, you consider Ben is now, remember, Ben worked for Fox. And
that's how I met him. I was impressed with his 5-minute interview, so I sought him out and brought him in the show right around the 2012 election period.
Mm-hmm. And now he's an anchor for the primetime headline news slot on RT.
Russia Today. Go freaking figure.
His multiple media sources that he has at benson.com. Great guy, love Ben. And he's developing a very good staff of writers. And of course now we also have the Fifth Column, and we also have Anti-Media with Nick and Justin and all the crews that are part of there. I'm writing for both of those as well. They are phenomenal. We have Ford with News to Share. All of the alternative news media things are all inspired by Amber Lyon and what she exposed, being a whistleblower, with how CNN was corrupt, and that with her coverage of Bahrain and the documentary that she was doing, for example. All of that, told us activists, that there had to be a way to get the truth out there, because it wasn't being told to us by Wolf Blitzer and Sean Hannity and Al Sharpton and Bill O'Reilly. And we were talking about the DHS thing about the sovereign citizens. They never actually said in that report anything what CNN reported. And what was interesting about it is, when I first heard about it, I didn't actually, because I don't watch CNN. When I first heard about it, was one of my newsroom editors in Coffee Party posted a story about the situation with the Republicans not wanting to fund Homeland Security and they were trying to use the excuse that, well, there's all these right-wing extremists out there. So when I looked at that, I'm like, give me a break, because again, what it showed me was it was a false argument. Now, I come from the left. I was raised in New York City. I was an anti-war person. When I used to argue with my father about Vietnam. When I was a kid, we had a lot of information being in the hub of the media that existed at the time, and I was anti-war. I wasn't into police violence. I wasn't into surveillance. All these things that came from the left back then. And here I was sitting and looking at a person who was liberal, a self-proclaimed progressive, talking about we should have Homeland Security because we have domestic terrorism. I'm like, we already have the FBI. How much security do we need? And when were you a liberal? Because you're supposed to. That's not what the liberal ideals are. Back when I was growing up as a liberal.
Well, maybe it's actually libertarian, like former NSA director.
It is.
Michael Hayden called himself a libertarian at CPAC and was heckled, as you could imagine.
Well, that's the crossover. Did you see the conversation with Gary Johnson when the one congresswoman was talking about marijuana being really bad?
He fell over from a heart attack, a fake heart attack.
Gary rolled over on the floor.
She's like, no, this is serious. Think of the children. Whoa, won't you think of the children?
And then Gary just goes to the floor because he's trying to tell her, first of all, we all know that Gary now is a medical marijuana dispensary owner. And so he's just basically telling her, I just had a joint and I'm going to pass out and have a heart attack right now. It's absurd. So getting back to the DHS, the Homeland Security thing. So now, and then of course they're talking about the Republicans not funding it, but that's not why they didn't want to fund it. They wanted to add a rider to the bill about the executive order about immigration, which is a whole other can of worms. So now, what you have here is you have an article that isn't telling the truth about anything, but it's creating a division. And that's what drives me crazy, because CNN, I went and read the report. Reason.com, some more people that you and I both know, put out a story the very next day, and they highlighted all the deficiencies in what CNN had reported, and they posted the actual report from Homeland Security, which is where I got the one that I'm reading. And I read the whole thing, and it doesn't say anything that CNN says. It does discuss, it does give a outline of what sovereign citizens are all about, but it doesn't claim that they're growing. It doesn't claim that they're a threat. It doesn't claim that they're some kind of a terrorist organization that requires Homeland Security to act in a certain way or be worried. As a matter of fact, what it says is that we don't see any reason why there should be any problems with with these particular people over and above what we've already had, which is like a total of 24 incidences in 6-7 years.
What do you mean exactly, Bobby, by...
Which is not true, and it drives me crazy.
What exactly, Bobby, what exactly do you mean by these people? Yeah, I know what you're really saying there. That's a dog whistle. You mean those Liberty people, don't you? I know what that's all about.
No, I ain't talking about those people.
That's a dog whistle, man. I'm smart enough. I ain't falling for it. No, anyway, I really want to get to this story in Chicago with these special ops sites, but real quick, since we're maybe at like a midpoint where this was a lot of kind of getting to know you stuff, and I really want to cover this story because you have a unique insight into the National Defense Authorization Act, and with this Chicago story that's now breaking. Real quick, tell people where they can follow you, when you do your shows, Twitter, Facebook, all the best ways to stay in touch. Like, kind of leave everybody the breadcrumbs, if you will, at this point.
I take liberty with mycoffee.com is my blog. You can find me on Facebook. I take liberty with my coffee as well. I'm on Twitter at Bobby Rodrigo. My radio show is on Blog Talk Radio. I take liberty with my coffee. You can find me there. I'm on Sunday mornings at 8:30 to 10, trying to give people someplace else they can go besides listening to that mess that they have on Sunday morning on all those wonderful stations that lie to us. We have great guests. We cover everything. We cover everything from Common Core to police brutality to constitutional rights, indefinite detention. I'm a big constitutional protection guy. I wish our government would take the Constitution out for a spin so we could see how it works.
Yeah, it's a great device, but you got to kind of keep the machine working. You got to,
Yeah, you got to. Yeah, exactly.
It'll rust if you just leave it there.
No. You got to kind of, take it out and kick the tires and light the fires, as they say. Absolutely. And I'm covering a number of stories right now. We had a police brutality incident here in Georgia that has been prominent on my show.
Hold on. Which one are we at? That's not
David
the grandfather,
Hook.
is it?
Sorry?
The grandfather, or is that's Mississippi?
That's the grandfather, David Hooks. Yes, that story. I wrote that story out of here. And
hold on. Wait. Is that the Indian guy that was slammed down and partially paralyzed?
No, this is David Hooks, who was in his home, who filed a police report that his truck was stolen and his house was burglarized. They caught the guy who burglarized his house. He wound up being a CI. They caught the guy with crystal meth on him.
Wait, a CI? What are we?
Confidential informant.
Oh,
the guy that did the burglary was actually a registered confidential informant with the county task force where this gentleman lives. He filed a police report. They caught him. He then turned around and told the police that the place where he stole the truck from that's where the crystal meth came from. It was in the truck. Okay, now hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He stole the truck. He told the police that the crystal meth that they found on him when they caught him was in the truck that he stole, and that is the basis of what they used for a warrant to go after this guy's house who has no record, who's lived in his area his whole life, who has a business in his area, and his family has businesses in this area. They go to his house. This is the next day. At 11 o'clock at night, militarized. The wife sees a bunch of people running around outside and thinks that the burglars are back. She wakes up her husband, who grabs his shotgun that's not loaded and walks down the hall in his house naked. And they kick the door in and shoot him and kill him. That's the case. And it was just handed over. And, yeah, and it doesn't have the ethnic divide in it, so it did not fit the national narrative. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It did not fit the narrative.
Well, neither did Trayvon or Mike Brown, in my opinion, either.
Well, right, I agree. Like I said, right, wrong, or indifferent. It just didn't fit the ethnic divide.
Your story sounds terrible, and I don't. That one's not even on my radar is enough that it needs to be. I know the John Crawford got killed with the air gun he picked up off the shelf in Beaver Creek, Ohio, Walmart.
Like we talked about when we talked about yesterday.
Eric Garner getting choked out, and yes, he was saying, "No, you're not arresting me today. I've had enough. I'm stopping it right here." That's not really the thing you're supposed to do. You go and you have a lawyer sort it out. You don't challenge them to a fight because it doesn't go well. But yeah, getting choked out with a maneuver that they're not supposed to be using. Of course,
right.
it's easy to sit and say what you're supposed to and not supposed to do technically. And when you get into a fight with somebody, things tend to devolve, which is why you're supposed to not fight people, because one punch could land somebody on the counter,
exactly.
and they hit their head the wrong way and they're dead, and that's why you're just not supposed to do anything violent. So we should go against it. But it's just I was talking about the grandfather. I think it was Alabama, where the Indian grandfather, the guy from India, he was walking around the neighborhood and someone called in and said a suspicious character with
that was in Huntsville.
He said.
That was in Madison, Alabama, right by me, actually.
Yeah, and they said that a man wearing a toboggan, which is a sledding vehicle, there's a guy wearing a toboggan looking in people's homes. It's suspicious. And so they came out and threw him onto the ground, slammed him. This guy was no threat. They're talking to him. You want to detain him with suspicion of something and talk it out? You do that, but they slammed him to the ground, causing partial paralysis on this grandfather walking around an American suburb going, holy crap, whoa, what an interesting way to live.
All he was there for was to help his daughter with the new baby, just to be another set of eyes so the father and the mother could go to work, and they had somebody in their family. It's the only reason why he was even there. It's absurd. So
there are so many of these cases, though. I ended up going the one time that I was I've been on Coast to Coast a couple of times, but once for like 5 minutes talking about 2012, but this was the only time I was on for like the full hour, and it was when the Kelly Thomas verdict was read. I was on there with John B. Wells and just kind of talking about these Fullerton, California police officers that on camera. The cop has him on the ground, and he's putting on latex gloves, saying, you see these fists? They're getting ready to F you up. And they beat him into a bloody pulp. You see the blood spilling out. He's unconscious. He dies in the hospital a couple days later, and they weren't even sentenced. Well, they were sentenced. They were charged, but they weren't guilty. They let them out.
You live in a state that you live in. This is all Rodney King stuff. The Rodney King video says one thing. It says police brutality. It doesn't say anything else. And in my view, that anybody who can watch that video and come up with a different conclusion has lost their mind. There's no way, and that was this is kind of where I think our society is sometimes, is we have this, if Fox News, for example, let's look at it from a left-right perspective for a moment, because that's what they try and have us do. If Fox News takes the Rodney King video and tells their audience about it, their audience is going to disagree with what MSNBC's audience sees when they see it, regardless of which way the organizations do it. Instead of telling us this is what happened, make up your own mind, because they haven't done that for 30 years. So what you just described is I always said, because like I said, I lived out there for 10 years. I always said that when the O.J. trial was going on, that there was no way they were going to convict him because of the jury that they had, because they're going to make the L.A. Police Department pay for the behaviors that they have had in that city for 30 years. And what did they do? They came back in, what was it, 5 seconds with a not guilty? There was no way that should have happened. That's all that was. It was a protest nullification in my opinion. Rodney King verdicts, we all know what happened when they were charged and tried in a suburb that had the racial divide part and the narrative, and they got away with it. So then what happened? They had riots. Unfortunately, violence, unfortunately.
But it is just so sad that we can't even keep the incidents of questionable police violence cases separate anymore. And in some of these, totally. it's not even questionable. Kelly Thomas, he wasn't waving around a knife. He wasn't aiming a gun. He was sitting on the curb, and then he had his ass kicked to teach him a lesson. And guess what? Your lesson killed him.
What about the guy who was, and fortunately, this police officer was discharged, but I actually thought he would be because he was a rookie. The guy who was walking down the stairs in New York, just walking down the stairs, he wasn't a suspect. He was just walking down the stairs in an apartment complex, and when he turned the corner, the police shot him. He had no weapon. He wasn't a suspect. He wasn't being chased. There was nothing. That was the entire interaction, him getting shot. Now, they charged him just recently, 2 weeks ago. But I always said they're going to charge him because he's a rookie, so he's got no history. They're going to throw him out to the wolves. That's what they do. So you're right. They don't separate it, and I'm not anti-police. I'm anti-police brutality. They're going to, and it's as much a policy problem as it is an action problem, a bad cop problem, because they are promoting this policy, and with all this militarization. I saw a good meme. You may have saw it. I saw it the other day, where they had a picture of a kid sitting in like a soda shop at a counter.
Oh, like the Norman Rockwell paintings, like those classic Americana.
Right, with the cop sitting next to him, and then they had one right with a cop in military gear sitting next to him, which shows where we are in our society. We have a military, we have an FBI. Yes, you can have SWAT teams. But what you're doing, everybody, and the policies that you have is out of control. And we don't have community policing. We don't have protect and serve attitude being taught. The chokehold you mentioned, absolutely outlawed. It's not authorized. She has no. My oldest, dearest friend is a New York City police captain, and another dear friend of mine is a Suffolk County detective for the DA's office, 23 years a cop. And I assure you, I've talked to them about this. I've actually asked them to come on the show, and they can't because they have to get permission. And my oldest friend does not agree with what happened with Eric Garner, and he does not agree with the stuff that the union guy was saying, that was promoting all of this diatribe, and he does not agree with treating protesters like they don't have the right to assemble and speak. And of course, we're not getting that. We're getting the narrative that divides us, regardless of if it's. Al Sharpton is just as bad as Bill O'Reilly. There is no good side to this discussion. I defy anybody to give me 10 people in mainstream media that tell the truth. I don't think it can be done. Just like I don't think it can be done that there are 10 people in Congress that actually work for us.
See, I do like 60% of what Fox is doing, I call out the crap as I see it.
Of what they're doing. What are they doing?
No, just the stories that they're covering.
What's 60%?
I don't just the general stuff of going after and trying to root out the details of Benghazi, trying to find out the details of what's going on with Lois Lerner and the IRS after she lied about all of her emails being missing. I like that they're going after the Obamacare fraud. There's a lot of bad stuff going on that Fox is actually going after and serving a good purpose, knowing that the rest, and I'm just kind of clumping together ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, all these places as the left media.
You're killing me. They just didn't do it when Bush was president. You're killing me. They don't get a pass for their behavior during Bush because they're now the opposite side of the ideology.
Oh no! But they should be ignored during Bush, just like the left wing should be ignored when a Democrat's in office. I think the left did a lot of good work hammering Bush when they were in office, but I think that they were so unfair so many times. They lost a lot of credibility in that.
I think that the New York Times and the entire left, including MSNBC, stroked Bush and promoted the war in Iraq, and that's why Donahue was removed from MSNBC, for example, for protesting the war in Iraq.
Him and Jesse Ventura.
Thank you. Perfect example. These people, there is no. Oh my God, Fox News, you're killing me. You're killing me. So
they accidentally make a lot of sense. And that's where I come from. I'm a former Republican that used to buy their bullcrap.
I want to touch base on that real quick because I learned something about Benghazi about 4 months ago that I didn't think to look at, which I slapped myself because I didn't.
Which was what?
Go to if you have a computer in front of you, go to the State Department. Everybody who's listening, who's got a computer in front of them, go to the State Department website and look up every consulate or diplomatic location that the United States has in the world, and you will not find Benghazi on that list, and it never was. Benghazi is not an official consulate or diplomatic location. It never has been. It never will be. And how come they talk about it like it is? I don't care what network it is.
No. It's never been official. It was always a black ops site so you could run the guns, to arm the militants so that you could create an ISIS, so that you could further destabilize the region after you've taken Saddam out, after you've taken Gaddafi out.
And if you research the diplomat that was killed, you look at his history, you will find out that that's all he's ever done. He's been involved in black ops and guns. And he was not defended by anybody who was a member of the military. Because if it was a diplomatic consulate, our Marines would have been there already. They wouldn't have been.
Well, there were all those stories that they were requesting more security presence at that facility. Those reports were put out there.
All I know, here's what I know. I know that from a military standpoint, in my opinion, and I haven't been in the military in a while, so I don't know the clowns that are there now. And I say clowns, I mean the generals and stuff that are buying into all this crap that's going on in the last 20 years. But I just don't think, from the standpoint of defending, that we had any chance of getting there at all. That's what I think. I know how we can operate. I know what we can do. I know what it means if we're sitting in ships on the sideline. I actually was sitting outside of Beirut when the 240 Marines were killed by the bomber, and we sat there and didn't fire a bullet. So, it's interesting to me how these things happen because, there's a great analogy right there is you have Benghazi and you have the Marine barracks in Beirut. And if you look at the two of them, you'll see a difference, and you'll see that the same sides are having a different argument. We had the ability to go after the people who killed our Marines. We certainly didn't have the ability to stop a suicide bomber. That happened. There was a discussion about that and the security and how did that truck get through. And there was all this discussion about, well, if it's a suicide bomber, there's no way to stop them. And that's why they built the barricades around the courthouse in Colorado when they had the Timothy McVeigh trial, for example. There was no way a suicide bomber was going to hit that court building because they put concrete barricades around it. So there are ways to combat that stuff. They came up with it, but there was that argument that security was a problem and that we could have helped them and all that stuff. I was there, so I was pissed off that we weren't shooting somebody because I just had 240 brothers die, almost right in front of me when it gets right down to it. And all we did was hear excuses, and investigations. I don't like the fact that our diplomat was killed no matter what he was doing. I don't like the fact that anybody gets killed. But I think Benghazi is a false argument. I think it's one of those things that is used to divide us in the public. But like you mentioned earlier, Romney didn't talk about it after he got his NSA briefing, and there's a reason for that. Because the truth is something different, in my opinion. And I think that all they're doing is stirring our pot, making us hate each other, making us have this conversation we're having when we should be talking about the crap that they're doing or not doing.
You know what? I love what you're saying right there. let's make a pivot, because I have a hunch you're going to be on a few more shows. You'll at least have a few more invites, whether you should choose to join a few more upcoming shows over here on Agree to Disagree. So we'll deal with those stories a little later, because I want to hit you with this. And that's an amazing story that you were down there in Beirut. We will dig into that a little bit further down the road. That's a promise, because that's interesting. That's being somewhere at a moment in time, like being down there in Ferguson or being out at the Bundy Ranch, or wherever we happen to be. It's interesting to have that perspective, or to walk around New York a couple months after September 11th and talk to people and get their stories. It's just, anyway. I want to ask you about this and then move right on to another former Obama administration person. I want to cover that Chicago story because it's kind of your lead over there, and I take liberty with my coffee. What do you feel about the tweet from former White House Chief of Staff and senior Obama advisor John Podesta? This was from a couple weeks ago. He says, "Finally, my biggest failure of 2014. Once again, not securing the disclosure, hashtag disclosure, of the UFO files." You have any thoughts on that one?
I haven't had a chance. They don't give me a chance to think about everything. But I did catch that, and of course, we all know that Area 51 exists. It has forever. We all know in the military. We all know that, at least anybody that had any kind of clearance.
Did you ever see the Simpsons episode where Lisa gets lost and she looks on one of those maps that you'll see like at a mall or something, and it has like the little dot, and it shows this, and it says Area 51, and the little dot says, "You are here. We are not."
Well, do you remember if you saw the movie Independence Day?
Yeah. Wait, you think we really spend $20,000 on a toilet? Oh.
Yeah. Well, there's other issues there too, but that made me think of other things. The line where when they run into Will Smith out in the field, and he says, "When I was flying, I saw a base overhead," and Quaid says, "Well, it's not on the map." He goes, "Trust me, it's there." And that's all the relationship to what you're saying with the Simpsons. They got to put that little dig in there. The Air Force has sites, has always had. The Air Force is very powerful, and they run all the button pushing stuff. I was part of a war op that went on years ago, and the F-22, which is a ridiculously powerful jet, was doing an exercise against, it was either the 15 or the 16. I always get them mixed up now since I'm getting senile. But the Air Force was running.
If you expose yourself to too much politics, Bobby, that'll make us a little senile a little quicker. I'll tell you what, gray hairs and everything.
Of course. So the object was the F-22s would have to shoot down the F-15s, and the F-15s took off from one of the bases in the upper Northeast, I believe it was New Hampshire, and they took off, and the F-22s were set to leave in an hour after they took off because of their speed and their stealth abilities. And they were coming from Alaska.
And they were what? They're going to be reconnaissance, or they're going to be like all of the...
No, they're going to shoot them down. The idea is to shoot them down.
Oh, okay.
So the F-22s took off, and 5 minutes later, they won the op by shooting down the F-15s. And they were very, very far apart. And I always think of things like that when I discuss what we really can do and can't do. I find it comical. All the military and anything, and I'm kind of getting back to the UFO thing. But whenever I think about us as a power, it is absurd to me when I hear any discussion about, like, for example, a lot of the things that come from Fox News, or how Obama is weak, and then all this other stuff, and how our military is less than what it was, and it cracks me up whenever I hear that, regardless of who is president or those things, or what kind of leadership abilities they have. But from the standpoint of downsizing, if we cut our military in half, period, our military budget in half, we would still have a bigger budget than the next 10 countries combined. We already have a bigger budget than the next 15.
Well, and you know what, and that's something Ron Paul brought up, and definitely a lot of liberty-minded people bring up about having bases in every country, and we're playing Team America World Police. Of course,
we have thousands.
We have trillions, literally quadrillions, literally. Don't you love people that misuse literally? My head literally burst. Oh, it literally burst. You're literally a moron. Anyway, what the heck was I even
for Podesta to say that, and this isn't the first time that's happened either. You know, there was in the 70s there was a big push for UFO information from our government. There was a lot of books that were written about it.
When was Rendlesham? Was that in the 80s? I forget when Rendlesham.
Want to say that was the 80s. Yeah, I'd have to look to remember, but I want to say that I think I was an adult then. Yeah, so let's see, and I joined in '79, so I think it was, yes. But again, there was a big push for the UFO information. So it's not the first time that
it was in late 1980.
It has been a while.
Late 1980.
Yeah, so it has been a while since a high-ranking government official had said something like that, without question. Somebody who would actually have the security clearance to know, and certainly Podesta would.
Yeah, he certainly would.
Without question, and it goes, and of course we are the great redactors.
Apparently Clinton was really trying to get this info, and he was getting shut out. He wasn't in their private club among private clubs.
Right.
They wouldn't even let him in, but I know Nixon reportedly went and had some meetings down in Florida. And of course I just talked with Laura Eisenhower, the great granddaughter of President Eisenhower.
Oh, she's I love her.
She's awesome. She's actually the voice of a character. My brother and I are working on this movie, and by working on, I mean very, very, very slowly working on this movie.
Sure.
And since we saw her speak and give a lecture at the Conscious Life Expo, I said, that's the voice of our main character. Holy crap, this is her. But anyway,
I really like her.
Okay. Let me wrap up this point too, because when I interviewed Abby Martin at the United We Stand festival when you were there with Dan and whatnot, I put her contact info in my phone that I then upgraded to another phone and wiped clean. So if you can if you could put my request to invite her on the show through you over to her camp, and then we could reconnect, that would be great, because it's on my to-do list and I keep forgetting to do it. But anyway, yeah, I was just saying about the military being all over the place, being Team America World Police, that the problem from some people when they say, oh, Obama's weak, he wants to cut the military. Yes, you make a very valid point about how expensive it really is, the time and treasure involved with trying to play Team America World Police. It's very expensive, and it's counterproductive in so many ways. Now, you're very right to call out the people that just call Obama weak, because it's like a combination. You got to figure out, are you saying Obama's weak? Are you saying he's a Manchurian candidate? Are you saying that he's acting like he doesn't know what he's doing and he's actually trying to destroy our nation from within? Is Valerie Jarrett running things with Iran? There are so many multifaceted layers of conversation involving who is Obama, what is his agenda, is he completely incompetent, is he completely cocksure when he doesn't know anything, or is he just doing what it takes with hoppity-changity to jam through the agenda that was going to happen, whether it was him or Romney in office, either way, and he's just the salesman pushing it his way, and he's leaving it to lead from behind while all the puppet masters are pulling the strings, and he's just not the main character in the play anymore. There are so many ways to think about our influence globally, as far militarily, and it's way more complicated than you can just sum up by saying he's incompetent. Incompetent like a fox, maybe.
Well, you know what's interesting about our presidential candidates and our presidents. If you look at one of the things I always point people to when it comes to the ability of the people who are in charge is, for example, when Bush 41 was president, he had foreign policy experience himself. He used to be the head of the CIA, for example. So when he picked his vice president, he could pick a moron. Doesn't matter who he picked, because he didn't have to show foreign policy experience. Now here Clinton comes along, and he has to pick somebody that has foreign policy clout because he doesn't. So he picks Al Gore. Same thing that's how George Bush, 43, when you look at him, he had obviously no foreign policy experience. As a matter of fact, it was one of the issues in his drive to become a president, is that they used it as a debate. So when he became the candidate, what did he do? Is he picked a foreign policy heavyweight, boy did he, in Dick Cheney. Same thing with President Obama. He had no foreign policy experience, of course, besides having no experience regardless. So what does he do? Is he picks somebody from the Senate who's a foreign policy heavyweight. Regardless of what anybody thinks of Joe Biden, he has an extensive history in foreign policy in his career. So it validates their approach. John McCain didn't have to do that, of course, because he was a foreign policy heavyweight, has been for a long time. Whether you like him or not, he has the experience of dealing with foreign policy as a job. So you kind of get an idea of how it works. Now, when Obama became president, one of the things that I was furious about, well, a couple of things I was furious about when he first became president was the change aspect of what he was saying. Tom Daschle, before Obama was sworn in, he picked Tom Daschle to run HHS, and the progressive side of the world threw a fit. I threw a fit because his wife is the head of one of the largest lobbying firms in D.C. So there's no change there. The money connection to politics wasn't being solved by having Tom Daschle in your cabinet. He also left Robert Gates as Secretary of Defense. And that was huge if you want to know about whether or not Obama was going to change anything, because Gates has a history, all the way back to Reagan, of being a bad, bad human being. And his excuse for leaving Gates was, well, we didn't want to see any change because, we had Iraq and we have Afghanistan and we don't want to have somebody new come in. Well, that was crap. He went to that NSA briefing that Scahill talks about, and they blew him away. And he capitulated completely to the military when he became president and incorporated everything that Bush wanted and gave it steroids. Whether he did it by his own design or by compromise or capitulation, I don't know. I'm not in that room. But it happened. And you can go, like I said earlier, you can go down the list of the things that he said he was going to change, or that he was against, or that he voted against. Obama voted against the Patriot Act, for example, and the war in Iraq. So if you look at the history and the stand, then you look at what was done, and you're like, what the hell happened? And it just goes to show the power of our military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about, which, as you and I have talked about recently, it seems like it's happening before our eyes. That seems like it is happening before our eyes. There's no seam about it.
Well, let's get into the main story that I wanted to get to today. It's Chicago. It's the main story that you have. Catch us up to speed on what's going on over here, because it links in with the National Defense Authorization Act. It is a former high-ranking Barack Obama official, Rahm Emanuel, heading up the city in this monstrosity that was kicked in. When was that? December. When was that? It was 2011 or 2012. The NDAA.
It was 2012 NDAA was when the indefinite detention provision was added to it, and of course, just to give a quick background, the National Defense Authorization Act is something that happens every year and has for decades. It is normally used just to fund the military each year it usually contains a cost of living raise to the military. This time, Congress put a rider in it that extended the authorization of use of military force, number one, and it put an indefinite detention provision for belligerent acts, and it essentially wrote laws that violated the First and the Second and the Fourth, Fifth and Sixth, Ninth, and 14th Amendments of the Constitution, plus a couple of articles, because they're having the military act like police in the country. And they can indefinitely detain. They had the authority now to indefinitely detain anyone, anywhere, and America is now a battlefield. America is now classified as a battlefield.
I was hoping you were going to bring that up, because that really drives it home. It specifically spells out
America.
This is a battlefield.
Even Lindsey Graham even stood there and screamed it on the Senate floor on how America was now a battlefield.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham, John McCain, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Jeb Bush, John Kerry. If these guys could all just go on their stupid little island and just sip Mai Tais all day and leave us alone, I'd be very happy about that.
But you mentioned John McCain, and just real quick.
I'm sorry if it upset your stomach. I think it did to me too.
Well, you voted for him, so I want to point something out to you.
Hey man, I've done a lot of dumb things in my life, and nobody's perfect, and you
do like the Cleveland Browns, so I understand. So
no,
anyway.
no, that's a disease I was born with. There's a difference. I guess it's a terminal condition. I will have it for life, and it will negatively impact me, mostly on Sundays, occasional Thursday and Saturday. Usually not during playoff time.
You poor man. You had to live through Brian Sipe and Bernie Kosar.
Brian Sipe was the very beginning of my existence, being born in '79. So I know all about Red Right '88 and Brian Sipe and the Cardiac Kids. However, it was Bernie Kosar that I grew up on. And then the disaster of the team moving and all of that jazz. Yeah, but anyway, I digress. I completely digress into weirdness and whatnot. So, you have the NDAA. It's something that happens every year, except this year they snuck it in. Lindsey Graham, all these clowns, they really, really, really want this for some reason. And they really want access to all the health care. And they really want to control the internet now. And all the dominoes, it seems, have been set to be clicked. So, tell us what's going on in Chicago, Bobby. Yep. Kind of hard to do without a signal. Bobby, you there? And let's do a redial, shall we? Oh, trying to. Where's my producer? There we go. Unless I was getting a little too close to the truth. I'm gonna tweet out that.
I'm here.
Yeah, I'm stalling and putting out that tweet from John Podesta. I'm just sharing that again so people have it in front of them on the Facebook feed and the YouTube channel. That can all be found by going to thenewamericanmedia.com. It's all on the right side. You just click it, follow it, all that jazz. Okay, where I left off was saying. So now that we know a little bit more about the National Defense Authorization Act, something that happens all the time, except now they've put in this provision to really turn the screws and make Boston, posse comitatus, have the Military Act in as the police, have the FEMA camps, everything split up. I'm FEMA Region 9 if you want to send me a postcard when it all goes down. Now we have something happening in Chicago, and it's directly linked to Rahm Emanuel, who was a high-ranking Obama official. Can you tell us about this?
It goes back further than that because one of the Gitmo torturers.
I guess Gitmo should link into this story for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the Gitmo torturers came from the Chicago Police Department.
Oh.
So, yeah, one of the detectives for the Department of Chicago who has a history of bad interrogation tactics, etc. He went to Gitmo. So, Chicago is from the standpoint of the police and the politics as well as the violence. Chicago is Dogtown, USA, and I assure you, I do not mean that in any kind of racial way. That is strictly politics. And Chicago is the type of a city that has a wall around it. It's not exactly a friendly place where people will try to shine a light on things. And it's one, I always tell people that's one of the reasons why Al Capone lasted so long, because he was in Chicago. Anywhere else, Luciano just removes him from the earth real quick, but not in Chicago. It's just that way. It always has been in the police department in Chicago. If you go back to the Democratic National Convention of '68, kind of tells you all about Chicago, all you need to know. So they have this facility at Homan Square where they have their SWAT teams headquartered, where they have their evidence lockers, where they use it as basically a manpower base. And Chicago is split up into districts, like New York City is in precincts, and the LA's in divisions, for example, different parts of town. Chicago is no different. They have districts. Well, what happens is, and the Guardian broke this a couple of days ago, and it's since been blown up, and other people have come forward after the Guardian story came out, this last one. And what happens is that the police will detain someone, and they will take them to this facility off the books, where they won't be processed, booked, fingerprinted, all that other stuff, and they will chain them down, is the most common thing that they do, and leave them there, and they will run them through abuses, including interrogations, and bad and brutality, and, of course, no attorneys. And when the Guardian broke the story, they had one of the we'll call them alleged victims, because I like to follow the law, so a victim of this behavior who did a video interview, and he was his last name is Church, and he was one of the NATO 3, and that was part of the NATO summit protest. And he was arrested, and he was charged, and he was acquitted of some charges, and he was found guilty of some charges. And he described when they took him to this facility and they chained him down inside of a cell, attached to the bench for 18 straight hours. They wouldn't allow him to communicate with an attorney. He was not on the books as of yet. And there have been other stories that have come out about this. There was another one where they did an undercover buy or sell. They did an undercover sale to a person and then charged them with drug possession and intent to sell. And the person allegedly died of an overdose. Well, the only way he dies of an overdose is if they let him use the drugs that they arrested him for that he bought from them, which of course we know doesn't happen. So, and there was another 15-year-old that was abused in this facility. These are things that are coming out. And now more stories are coming out. And apparently there is what would you call it, a memo that the attorneys have. It's common knowledge throughout the legal aid defense and the private attorneys in Chicago, where they have this pamphlet, or not even a pamphlet, they just have these rules of engagement with the Chicago Police Department at Homan Square. And they know what they can and cannot do, and if they don't even have that with them, they're not going to get in that facility for sure if they even find their client there. And sometimes even with it, they're not going to get in because it's common where they walk up to the facility and a police officer will tell them they can't go any further. It's a secure facility. So the Guardian and other newspapers have said that
once again, the Guardian. We got to go to RT for news. We got to go to the UK from the Guardian.
Well, I'll get to mainstream because there was a response from mainstream. You'll love it. But you're right. And again, it's alternative media, and of course, I've covered it, and Anti-Media's covered it, $50 covered it, Free Thought Project.
Yeah, good. But we lost the internet yesterday, so I wouldn't get too excited about the new media.
Yes, did you notice that? Yes. We all noticed that as well. And of course, Anti-Media went down last night for some reason we don't know, and they're back operating. We don't know what happened there, but of course, we're looking.
Sure, keep telling yourself that.
Right. So the instance, Amnesty International is now involved. Al Jazeera is now involved. Intercept is now involved.
You got to get Al Jazeera involved. This is just, I swear I'm in a cuckoo clock.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So with the Chicago Sun and the Chicago Tribune, what they did is when they heard about this, they went and asked the police officers if it existed, and they said no. And then that was the end of the story. So and literally, that's what happened. They went and they said, well, is this going on? And they said, no, we don't do stuff like that. We follow the law, and there's nothing going on. And that was it. Now, one of the things that I don't necessarily care for is this, and I get why they're doing it, again, but I'd rather speak to the issue. I mean, the idea is to shut this place down. And they're calling it, it's similar to a CIA black site. And yeah, I get the similarity. Absolutely, but whatever it is, it's not legal, and the idea is to shut it down and to shine a light on it. So tomorrow there's going to be a protest. So right now going on, there's a Twitter storm going on. Hashtag is Gitmo to Chicago, and tomorrow there's a protest that's going to be going on at the facility, being put on by Chicago Anonymous and the Gay Liberation Network and Stop Mass Incarceration Chicago, along with other organizations, including People Against the NDAA and the Coffee Party and the Free Project and Anti-Media and Fifth Column and all these other organizations that are mobilizing and covering what's going on there, along with the Al Jazeera Free Thought Project. Ben Swan has reported about it. We mentioned him earlier. You know, The Guardian, of course, actually The Guardian probably has released another story about it today from what they discussed. And I was on a conference call last night with, or 2 nights ago, yeah, with 22 activist leaders from around the country, the bulk of them from Chicago, putting this together to make sure that we shine a big, bright light on this. And apparently this is going to go on every Saturday starting tomorrow, and hopefully it'll build appropriately. And I invite everybody to pay attention to it, because Chicago doesn't play when it comes. It's like L.A. Yeah. For people in Los Angeles, and obviously your show is worldwide, but where you're based, for example, we all know how serious the LAPD can be. We've all seen them up close and personal and know how they can behave.
By the way, 5,000 tweets in an hour. This is from Rachel P. on Twitter, hashtag Gitmo, the number 2, Chicago. It says 5,000 tweets in an hour, protest plans in Chicago and L.A., and it says Chicago media.
LA having one too, right?
It says Chicago media. This story isn't going away. So if you're out in Los Angeles, although during Occupy LA, I will say I went out there and I interviewed a police officer. It's on our Facebook feed, or our YouTube channel rather, if you dig back to that time frame, where he said, "Hey, it's the media's job to keep us accountable." You know, like these were two awesome cops that I interviewed, because I was like, just waiting. You could feel the tension there, but like I approached him and talked to him, and he said, "Hey, it's your job to keep us accountable," and I loved it. So, that's
it. That's how it works. I mean, that's why freedom of the press is in the First Amendment.
Yes. Yep.
So, people forget the concept of that, considering the time that was going on. But
this is Los Angeles City Hall.
Right.
DMVers,
I believe, put it together.
March 1st. Hosted by Abby Temple.
Temple as well, yes.
Los Angeles City Hall, Sunday at 3 p.m. is what this one is saying on Facebook. So.
Yeah, I interacted on the page earlier today, absolutely, and Abby is another great activist in the area, and people are jumping on this, thankfully.
So how did this even happen? This is so antithetical to what we're supposed to be about.
There was actually some information that was put out, and we were having email streams going on in the last couple of days, organizing it and interacting with the media, and also with the local lawyers. And there's a couple of lawyers that are involved in this protest for tomorrow. And one of the things that they put out is the Chicago Police Department's behavior in allowing attorney access to their clients is ridiculously bad in all the other places in the city as well. So it's not even, the issue here, of course, is that they're taking people at this place and they're detaining them off the books and, essentially we don't even know people that have been in there, I'm sure, because you know how they'll put somebody in there and do whatever they want to them and just let them out the back door, and there's no record of them even being involved. That's how this kind of thing works. Apparently, Chicago is so arrogant that they just have a procedure, even in their 12 district sites, that other than Homan Square, the real 12 where they're on the books, they don't allow access to attorneys even there, to a degree where the percentage is over 90% of the time that the attorneys cannot get to their client, and that's mind-boggling, considering what the whole process of being arrested and getting bail and getting out and questioning and all those things. And even if all those things doesn't happen anyway, it's the rule of law, of course. And so Chicago it's essentially got a wall around itself, and that's how they act. It's always been their nature in Chicago, the way they behave. That's why when they were so corrupt, another way, because they're corrupt in a different way now. When they were corrupt in other ways, they got away with it, for the longest time.
I have a hunch they're not getting away with this. I have a hunch this isn't going to go away. And as long as we have the internet, this place is going to get shut the hell down real quick. And
part of this, too, because it's a SWAT facility, of course, this is where the militarization of the police department, that's the headquarters of that. And there's one of the reports that talks about the amount of money that has come from the Department of Defense program that is sending all this military hardware around the country. And they talk about the amount of money that's gone to the Chicago area because they have these military vehicles at that facility, like they would because it's a SWAT thing. But the amount of hardware that these people have, and the whole, again, it's a policy thing.
Yeah, the MRAPs, they're getting all the used military vehicles, the Humvees, the mine-resistant, armor-protected vehicles, the freaking tanks to roll down. You saw that get rolled out with the Boston bombing, and you saw it get rolled out at Ferguson. Coming to a local precinct near you, the military are taking over for the police peace officers, and we are headed for a civil war, a revolutionary war, a world war, all wrapped up in the same clump of nonsense. And it's like John B. Wells says, we talk about this all the time, and those shows are archived. Listen to them. But we're not. Somebody told John B. Wells, I think it was his father or his grandfather. I got to double check the story. We did just talk about it. He said, but he was told, in the next war, we're not going to know who the enemy is. Is it Ferguson? Like we're supposed to think it's white versus black and black versus white? Are we supposed to think it's like what's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan? It's white versus brown. It's brown versus white. Is it going to be religion, or is it going to be Mexico versus U.S., U.S. versus Mexico? Is it going to be Russia and China versus England and the United States? It's just I really think all hell is going to break loose, and we're not going to know who's who, what's what, where anything is. And if they use that internet power switch and just shut us down, we're toast, man. Unless you have a ham radio, you're not connecting with people. And when the sites do come back, you're not going to get Drudge. You're not going to get I Take Liberty with My Coffee. You're not going to get the New American Media. You're not going to find RT. You're not going to find The Guardian. You're going to find the state-run propaganda that's been bought and sold. I'm telling you, it is this damn close to something so nightmarish. If I were a bad guy, I would have pulled the trigger already. If I was the bad guy, I would have said, go now. This is it. Do it.
We got everything we need in place. Let's go for it. You have to. Yeah, I mean, while we remain cautious and vigilant and diligent, we still have to remember, or try to, hopefully, that there are more people on our side than there are on their side. It just seems like they always have the money and the weapons. It's interesting, you mentioned the tanks going down the street, and I scream at people about Afghanistan, for example, and I'm 14 years in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, we've got 1,000 tanks parked in Arizona that we're not using in a war against people with pea shooters who live in caves. And we've been there 14 years. Here we are, the mightiest country in the world, militarily-wise, but we're not fighting that way. And that's what really bothers me when same thing.
Well, it's the same thing. We need a Department of Homeland Security, and I have to take my shoes off like a moron. You're going to confiscate. You're going to confiscate my Cleveland Stadium mustard, not mustard gas. My stadium mustard, the thing that I love dearly because it's liquid. No, it's a condiment. It's not a liquid. Fine, it's a liquid. You're going to take that from me, but you're going to leave the southern border porous. So tens of thousands of millions of people are going to stream over here, and we don't know who's who or what's what. But we're going to make checkpoints inside of the United States for citizens and residents and people that are already here. If it's not obvious to everybody at this point what the game plan is and how close it is to being implemented, I really...
Well, the thing is that we are the people in power are not promoting liberty. They're not promoting freedom, regardless of what it is. Now, from a constitutional standpoint, the government is supposed to protect our sovereignty, and they are supposed to protect our borders without question. And, of course, we all know where that's been going for the last 50 years. And, of course, it's highlighted more now than it ever has been because we have the Internet and we have all this 24-hour news and stuff, and we have this divisive conversation. But in actuality, this has been going on for a long time. And it shouldn't be going on for a long time. On the flip side, if we were promoting a liberty, freedom agenda, period, then a lot of things in the world wouldn't be happening and we wouldn't be worried about it so much. But that's not what we choose to do. As a country, we don't do it, and as a people in the world, we don't do it. They were talking about, Sean Hannity was questioning, God, I cannot believe you follow Fox for 60%. But putting that aside,
Well, I don't know, 60. Some days it's 80. You know.
I have no doubt.
You know, and I refer to myself as a recovering Republican, because
whatever that means.
Well, it means
it means
I used to kind of toe party line and go, well, the Democrats are so wrong, that must mean I'm Republican. And then I learned that half the Republicans are pretty much just like the progressive Democrats. I said, no, okay, they're oligarchs and they want to rule indefinitely, and they're both kind of equally bad.
Name me 10 Republicans that work for us, and you'll pass my test, because I don't think you can do it. But
work for us. We have no budget, man. We
I'm talking about that works for their constituents, that works for the people.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the alternative media.
I'm talking about Republicans in Congress, and just in Congress. Give me 10 people. I don't care what party they are that work for us. You can't do it.
There's a few that do quite a few good things.
You can't do 10.
Maybe not 10. Can I do 2?
There's 535 of them.
No, that's too hard. How about one?
Let me tell you how ridiculous Fox News
Let me try one.
MSNBC are. Okay? 535 people run for Congress. They have an approval rating
12%? 8%?
Them. And yet, in the last election, only 35 seats out of 530, well, actually, I'm sorry, 535 were not up for grab. Deduct 100. So 435 seats are up for grab, plus however many were up for grab in the Senate, say 40. Okay, so now you're talking about we're talking about 475 seats that are up for grab. And only 35 of those 475 seats had even the possibility of changing party, let alone the other person losing. That is how bad we have it in this country right now as far as people working for us. How can you be so bad at your job and yet keep your job? Because you have rigged the elections, period. There's no way around that. If 475 people can do a bad job and only 35 of them have the possibility of losing, then what the hell are we doing? That's how I look at that. It's absurd what we're dealing with in our society in that regard. And I just listened to Jeb Bush talk to Sean Hannity, and the question was, how do you feel about American exceptionalism? When we're doing the stuff that we're doing around this world, what the hell is exceptional about America? If we would not behave as the way we are behaving, we would be fine, because there are good people in this country, more good than bad. That's for sure.
But now you're starting to sound like Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Careful, you were one sentence away from, it's not God bless America, it's God damn America, or something like that.
If you're gonna refer to me as any kind of reverend, you have to look up Doc, and that would be the closest thing I would be to a reverend.
Who is it? Doc?
You have to look up Doc. He's somebody who I used to listen to years ago when I lived in California.
About Reverend Rodrigo. I like where this is headed.
Okay.
You'll be.
I'm gonna be like Doc, and I'm gonna light my cigars, and I'm gonna wear some hats.
If I could be like Doc, I wanna be like Doc. No, I can see it. You'll have a shoe line. We'll call the brand of shoes. We'll call it Rev Rods. Rev Rods.
Everything is a commercial jingle. We know it.
Yeah, and it almost reminds me of Team Ramrod from. Yep, Super Troopers, and the sequel will be coming out, which I'm pretty happy about. See, it all comes around full circle. Okay, so let's wrap this up here, Bobby. What are you personally doing with the Chicago story, and what do you encourage other people to do? Because hearing that this is operating right under our noses in this country is absolutely unacceptable, regardless of where you're coming from, where your background is politically, because if we allow this to happen to whoever, and don't let someone tell you they deserve it, or no, we got this, or don't you worry, or hey, don't speak up, or else you'll be next. The point is, you will be next if you allow it to happen to these people.
We don't sacrifice freedom for safety either. So don't go with that argument as well, without question. And what I've been doing is, number one, is I put the word out. I wrote an article about it.
Where is that article? Where can that be found?
On ITakeMyLibertyWithMyCoffee.com. It can also be found on the Coffee Party USA Facebook page. It was posted there yesterday. It also can be found at Scoop It. I scooped it. I'm a curator for Scoop It, and I will put it on your North American Media Facebook page here directly. As a matter of fact, I'll do it right now. I wrote an article about it. I also been promoting the other articles. I helped organize the event from the standpoint of just being part of the phone call and pointing out some of the important issues, or trying to help do that, and then promoting everything that Chicago Anonymous and the Gay Liberation Network and the Stop Mass Incarceration Chicago has been putting out, along with everybody else. I am going to do a radio show on my show Sunday morning. I'm going to have some of the protesters that were there on my show to talk about how it went. And, of course, we were promoting and being part of the Twitter campaign that is happening right now as we speak, that you mentioned earlier.
You want to do me a favor with that? You want to do me a favor and make sure you can, on a couple of those, make sure you're tagging at American_media_, and we will send that out to our, 17.2 thousand people, and we'll try to help you with that. Just tag us. So when you tag us, I get that special alert, and I can grab it and retweet it. That'll be very easy.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, cool.
So and then of course, as far as what people can do, it's the same thing. Shining the light on it, passing the word around. If you can be in Chicago or LA, where there's definitely events happening for sure this weekend, and the Chicago one's going to be every week. And if not, maybe organizing one in your area, or just pointing everybody at what's going on. There's a lot of stories about it. You can Google it. It's being covered by a lot of the alternative media places. Mainstream media has not picked up on this story yet, other than the Chicago Tribune and Chicago Sun-Times, as I had mentioned earlier. And of course, all they did was pay lip service to the Chicago Police Department. Basically, the police said it's not going on, so we're good, and they're not investigating it. InfoWars is there on the ground. I will say I'm not an InfoWars fan, but I love the way they cover protests and events. They're very good at it. They usually show up strong. There's somebody there on the ground already who's reporting that the police have harassed them from being on a public sidewalk.
Yeah, they've gotten pretty good over the past few years. I ran into those guys over at Bundy Ranch.
Oh, sure. No, absolutely. They covered the first protest. The first round of protests in Ferguson, they were very good there as well. And of course, any video evidence that can be, and they're going to live stream. The event is also going to be live streamed. I can't tell you off the top of my head what the live stream tag is.
Well, no, you can tell us, because as you cover it tomorrow, make sure you tag at American_media_, and we'll retweet that live, and that's the point. Pay attention to our Twitter feed and just be aware of what's going on, because we will help you share this message, because I want to know what's going on there. Is there something? Is there nothing? Why would the Guardian report it? If it's not happening, let's dig in a little bit and find out, and we all need to do this together, and that's why, despite the fact that we all have our own things going on, together we sometimes team up on radio shows and activist moments, or the Solutions Institute, or go down the list. Occasionally you need to collaborate, and you need to bring out the megaphone for it, and this seems like one of those events. So Bobby, in the last 30 seconds that I have you, why don't you tell us once again how to stay in touch with you and where they can get connected for all of the coverage you're going to have for us on this event this weekend.
You can find me at I Take Liberty at mycoffee.com. You can find me on Facebook at I Take Liberty with my coffee. My show will be on Blog Talk Radio, 8:30 in the morning Eastern Time on Sunday. And of course, it's archived. You can find it on iTunes if you want to listen to it later in the day, especially for those on the West Coast. I also am one of the editors for the Coffee Party USA pages, including the national page. Join the Coffee Party movement, as well as Coffee Party USA California, as well as a number of other places. You can find me on Twitter at Bobby Rodrigo. I also write for the Fifth Column and for Anti-Media, and you can find me those ways. And I'm on Facebook, Bobby Rodrigo as well. Please reach out. I will always respond, or at least try to. And come join the fight on all these things that are going on. And if I can't go to the lake, neither can you, damn it.
Hey, and you know what? The good thing is we can't always be at Bundy Ranch or Ferguson or Chicago. We need all of our viewers to participate. The reason we call it the New American Media is because you are the new American media. You need to be the correspondents out there. Some people have a budget and they can, send people out on assignments and pay for their airfare and pay for their hotel and pay for, a paycheck so that they can do this full time. Some of us just need to all volunteer in like clusters of volunteers. That's kind of what we were doing at Solutions Institute, and it's kind of how this new media thing is going to work for a while. It takes a while to make any significant money, and you know what? If you want to participate and stop. I've never been that person where I want to sit on the sidelines. I want to participate. I want to get on the field. I want to play. Let me play. I know how to play this game of football. Let me tackle somebody. Let me do something. I can shoot that ball. Let me play this game of basketball. I just want to do it, and I think that's how it's going to happen. So let's all link up tomorrow. Bobby, make sure that you're tagging us, and we'll be sure that we multiply that message out through our outlet as much as possible. And like I said, man, I think we're going to have an open invite for you to come on and do some radio shows here if you so wish from time to time, and we'll definitely talk off air. But thanks for joining us on this debut episode, Mr. Bobby Rodrigo, or Rev Rod, as they're calling you these days. I appreciate your time.
Fantastic, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate your time, and everybody. Glad to be part of what a New American Media and Brian does. I hope to talk to you again real soon.
All right, very good. Bobby, you take care, stay safe, and really keep that going tomorrow and help puppeteer a good cause of trying to multiply that message of what's going on in Chicago. We're going to do our part, and we ask that our listeners do as well. So for everybody here at the TNAM Radio Network, my name's Brian Engelman, signing off for Agree to Disagree here at thenewamericanmedia.com. Make sure that you're following us on Twitter. We're at American_media_. Do a search on Facebook for The New American Media with spaces in between, and like the page. Subscribe to youtube.com/The New American Media, and check out our hub, thenewamericanmedia.com, where you can click TNAM Radio and listen to these shows live. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace.